friends are not good drivers.
They all text when they drive, they fast.
I think I'm a pretty safe driver. Some of my friends are kind of iffy.
I think they all have met one person out here that's a safe driver, not even my mother.
I drive fast all the time, but my eyes and head is always open in the street, so I see cops and stuff like that. But other than that, I'm a good driver.
Everybody drive extra fast nowadays. You don't even gotta speed. A lot of people like to speed, just cruising. That's how the ladies gonna look at you either way. You flying past, they ain't gonna see you.
They wouldn't text and drive just for the simple fact of a lot of them don't even have phones. We wouldn't drink and drive because none of us are under the age. I don't condone underage drinking. It's not a good thing.
A lot of people text and drive.
I definitely text sometimes when I'm driving, but I don't drink and drive or anything, so I'm pretty safe.
Definitely not drinking and driving, but occasional text.
I know of people who drink and drive and speed and text.
Most of my friends are pretty safe. Some of them look crazier when they drive. Some of them like to text. Some of them like to listen to loud music and eat or drink.
If my friends are talking to me, then it's kind of hard to concentrate on what I'm doing, and I might accidentally run by a stop sign.
I got my license February, but I hit a car, I paid them off on the spot.
The first like 2 months of me having my license. I mean, I was going down my street, and then as I was looking to my right, I didn't see anybody coming in my rear view. But once I turned, I smashed into somebody else coming in.
It was on a rainy day, and I was on my way to work, and I was eating and driving, which wasn't something I was supposed to be doing. And I couldn't see the sign that said no left turn. And I made a left turn and got hit. My mom was a little upset with me. Well, a lot upset, but you just got to be careful. You got to pay attention. You know, people make mistakes. Things are going to happen. Just as long as no one was hurt, I guess that's the important thing.
So Elias, have you ever heard of the 10 Commandments of driving?
No, I didn't even know there were 10 Commandments of driving.
Yes, they're actually part of a 2007 document straight from the Vatican called Guidelines for Pastoral Care of the Road.
Wow, go figure. I never really learned about that in religion class. But like, what are they?
Well, basically they're rules for the road covering the moral aspects and the Christian virtues of driving.
Well, cool. That sounds like a topic to definitely check out.
Since we both drive, of course.
Yeah, right.
Well, sounds good to me. The 10 Commandments of driving, that's what we'll be talking about today. Hi everyone, I'm Kate.
And I'm Elias.
And this is Realfaith TV.
Even for those of us who aren't driving yet, we all know about the many distractions and behaviors which can cause motor vehicle accidents.
Our spotlight guest Gina barely avoided a serious accident while she was texting while driving her car.
We'll meet her a little later in the show, as well as hear from the teens on the street.
But first, let's meet our studio guests and find out if they drive, and if they do, what distractions they have faced.
Okay, they are Megan, Ajama, Christina, Ashley, John, and...
Where's Vince? I thought he was supposed to be on the show.
Yeah. Oh, here he comes.
Ow! You see that?
No one saw that.
Texting while walking. What would you do if you were texting while driving?
This was a very important message. You do not understand.
What's more important than your safety?
You know what, young man? Give me the phone. Give me the phone. Give me the phone.
You can get it back later.
You can have it back at the end of the show.
Well, I don't text when I'm driving, and I won't text when I'm walking anymore either.
That's good.
Okay. So now that we have all of us here today, how many of you have a driver's license, and what kinds of distractions are the most tempting to you guys?
I think we all drive, right? I mean, I have my license.
I have my license too.
Yeah, I drive, and I have to say, one of the most distracting things, I'm always late. I'm 20 minutes late for everything, no matter how early I set my watch. So I'm constantly speeding to try to get to a certain place on time. So I think just even being late is enough of a distraction, not just texting or anything like that. But
I've been driving for a couple of years, and I think that the greatest distraction for me is basically if I have another person in the car and we're having a really in-depth conversation, and I get focused on the conversation instead of watching everything that's going on around me.
I've been driving with my license for about a year, a year. And one of the greatest distractions is texting. Like sometimes I'll be in the house and I'm texting, then it carries on to the car. I have to keep, it's so hard to like stop, to keep like continue with the conversation.
Or also if you have someone in the car and they're like, oh my goodness, look at that.
Yeah.
You're like, no, I'm driving.
Or when someone's trying to show you like a picture on their phone, look at this. I'm driving.
I have similar, I'm sorry, you want to?
Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I have similar experiences with people in the car. I only have my permit, so my parents are always next to me.
Right.
And the thing is, when I'm driving, they're trying to yell at me for things that I'm doing wrong. Yeah. Now, I see the stop sign, Mom, but you don't have to yell at me. You're distracting me.
You're the same boat I am. We're going to be seniors, and we have our permit, and the parents, always feel they need to put their 2 cents in,
We don't need it. We have enough.
Exactly.
I've had my
provisional license for about 8 months, and there are two things I think are really distracting. One, I have my iPod in the car. I hook it up through the cassette player, and just like zooming around to get to the songs I want to hear, that it takes my attention away from the road, and it's really bad. And the other thing is this little baby, because it's great for getting you around, but at the same time, when it's talking to you, when you're trying to put in addresses and stuff, it's really distracting.
It's a GPS?
Yeah, GPS system. It's a miracle if you don't know how to get where you're going, but it's really distracting and possibly dangerous.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. For me, the radio is definitely a big problem, and I'm like a sightseer, so I'll like see something pretty or like a nice car, and I'm like, ooh, look at that, and then I realize, oh my gosh, I'm driving. Well, next, let's meet our Spotlight guest, Gina.
Gina will share some of the distractions she thinks are prevalent in today's society and also share with us about a time her mom was seriously injured in a car accident where the driver was actually on the phone.
I just got my provisional license. I had my permit for like a year. I've been having my license for almost 6 months. Some of the distractions that some drivers have to deal with today are texting, talking on the phone, people in your car, like a lot of people in your car. Other things are like music. I know a lot of us like switch the stations. And I know my mom's always like, well, can't you leave one station? I've never gotten in a car accident, but my mom did. She was coming back from work one day. A car was coming out of the turnpike and they were on the phone. Because this lady was on the phone, she wasn't aware really of like what she was doing. So she made like an illegal turn and hit my mom. The car was totally damaged. Thank God nothing happened to her. It just, she got like a back problem now. She has to go to therapy for it. She got laid off work because she couldn't do the same amount of work that she could do before. Before she could lift like boxes, and now she can't anymore because of her back. She's doing pretty good now. Today she's doing pretty good.
You see that? Even Gina's mom was being so careful, but we always have to remember accidents can happen even when we're careful on the roads.
But many accidents can be avoided simply by following the rules of the road.
The accident that injured Gina's mom could have possibly been avoided if the driver wasn't talking on her phone.
All right, so I got a question for you guys. Do any of you know of any accidents that were caused by like a distraction of like a cell phone or texting or anything like that?
I have a friend who basically is always texting when she drives, and I used to be in the car with her a lot. And after a while, I started actually stopping that because I was getting nervous. I think her cell phone is attached to her steering wheel. Basically, she was leaving the mall one night. She was on her phone, not paying attention, and she wound up swerving and swerving and swerving around in circles. And there was a median, not a tall median, but a flat one with like grass on it. Her car went up to the median, tipped, and came back down. And she almost flipped over. She called me, immediately told me what was going on. And I'm thinking, were you on your phone? And she didn't even want to admit it, but it was the truth.
My friends actually tested cell phone reaction times when driving for a science fair project, and they simulated a driving experience on a video game, and then they had various subjects talking on the cell phone while driving and then not talking on the cell phone while driving, and they actually found a 3-second time difference. And 3 seconds may not seem like very much, but it definitely is when you're trying to focus on the road.
And you know, going off of that statistic, I remember I was driving with a friend once, and we weren't on the phone or anything, but the car that hit us actually was, and we made a turn. It was just about to turn red, and we were in the center, so we had to go. This guy ran a red light, hit us, and then denied it.
Wow. I actually have a really crazy story. A friend of mine was texting while driving on the phone too, just, you know, not paying attention to the road. She was really into her conversation, and somehow she managed to drive into a store. She just drove her car right into a store, brand new car. Luckily, no one was hurt, and you know, that was a warning definitely for her. I think it was a wake-up call, because I haven't seen her on the phone in the car since then, so hopefully that was a wake-up call.
Very large wake-up call.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so as we said before, there are 10 commandments of driving. The first 4 commandments for drivers issued by the Vatican are, number 1, thou shalt not kill.
Number 2, the road shall be for you a means of communion between people and not of mortal harm.
Number 3, courtesy, uprightness, and prudence will help you deal with unforeseen events.
And number 4, be charitable and help your neighbor in need, especially victims of accidents.
They all sound like good Christian virtues, which can be carried over into our driving.
If you had to make up your own commandments for driving, what would they be?
That's what we asked the teens on the street.
Let's check it out.
Thou shalt not speed.
Don't speed.
Slow down.
Don't speed.
Wear your seatbelt.
Stay awake.
Don't talk on your cell phone while driving.
I don't think we should be on the phone while driving. You could wait until you get to your destination.
No texting while driving. I see a lot of that. No talking on the phone.
Thou shalt text while we driving.
No eating. No drinking.
Don't drink and drive.
Don't drink and drive.
Never drink and drive.
Definitely don't drink and drive.
Don't carry too many people.
Don't distract other people while they're driving.
Don't be distracted.
Pay attention to the road. Watch the road.
And keep your eyes on the road at all times.
Pay attention to the laws.
Just follow the street signs.
Don't drive offensive.
Thou shalt let the other person pass when he beeps.
Be courteous to other drivers.
Don't talk while you drive at all. It's very distracting.
Don't do anything that you know you shouldn't be doing while driving, like talking to people in the back, like being turned around.
Distractions and like your friends in the back seat and everything. I know I get distracted really easily.
To be a great driver, I mean, let people go sometimes. That's what you just gotta do.
Well, guys, can you think of any others to add to the list, or which have you found that are most commonly abused?
Well, I would add being a defensive driver to the list. And unfortunately, I can relate a story. There was a former student from my high school that recently passed away in a terrible accident. He was riding his bicycle down a busy street, and he had his iPod on with the volume turned up too loudly, and he couldn't hear oncoming traffic, and he was struck by a car. So we just have to remember, as drivers, to be aware of distractions, but also as pedestrians to be aware of the other drivers in our surroundings.
Sadly, not many people mention seatbelts. I think I heard like one guy mention seatbelts. I always put my seatbelt on wherever I'm in a vehicle, the school bus, someone else's car, and my friends make fun of me, like, why are you wearing your seatbelt? I'm like, it's safe, but like, people don't realize that seatbelt can help a lot.
I remember being in elementary school and nobody wore the seatbelt on the bus. And I'd always like put my coat like on top because I was like, I'm cool and I'm not wearing it, but like, but I mean, you have to, you really do.
You really should, yeah.
I say my mother has instilled a rule in me when it comes to driving. You can't just drive for yourself anymore. You have to drive for everybody else.
Yeah, and one of the commandments could be just listen to your parents, because it's so hard when they're teaching you, like, especially because usually they're teaching you while you're driving, so it's this weird environment. Like, it's just as confusing, but we just have to remember, listen to them, because...
And really, like, driving recklessly is almost like driving kind of selfishly, if you think about it. Like, with what your mom says kind of thing. It's like, if I speed down the highway, right, and I cut somebody off, you don't know who's in that car that you just cut off. I mean, you know, it could be, you know, a family full of kids and she brakes and she accidentally turns the car and you just killed an entire family because you feel like you have the right to speed past them, you know what I mean?
So we always have to remember, just drive safely, be careful. Well, back to the commandments. Number 5 is, cars shall not be for you an expression of power and domination and an occasion of sin.
And number 6 is, charitably convince the young and not so young not to drive when they are not in a fitting condition to do so.
A young woman did try to charitably convince Gina not to text or talk on the phone when driving.
She was hoping that Gina and other young people would learn from her story and not make the same mistake she did.
A mistake which resulted in her suffering a permanent disability.
I used to work in a supermarket, and this lady came in and she had like an obvious limp. She saw that like I was a young girl, so like she started to make conversation with me, and she told me, don't ever like text while I'm driving or talk on the phone while I'm driving, because she got in a car accident, so that's how she's like that way now. She has a permanent disability. That really touched me, and that really made me think I'm gonna be more cautious when I drive. I was with my permit, so I wasn't really driving on my own. Like, my mom would always be on the side, and she's like crazy about like the phone, so she'd be like, she wouldn't even want me to touch my phone. Like, I'll hear it ringing, she's like, leave it, like, don't touch it. When I started driving on my own, then I always had that in my head of that lady, and she was pretty young too. She's really pretty, and there are a lot of teenagers that don't understand like that it can be something very dangerous to be on your phone and drive at the same time. One time that I almost got in an accident, I was on my phone and I was texting, and I just kept like looking up and down like while I was texting. I was like on a like narrow road though, and I didn't like see any cars coming. I guess I lost sight for a second and my car started going to the other lane. Things can happen in like a blink of an eye. So I didn't think a car was coming, but in that second that I looked down, a car was coming. It was like very scary because even though the car didn't have to swerve, it was kind of far away, but I didn't see it. Like, I looked up, I didn't see it, I looked down, and right when I looked back up, it was there. That definitely scared me enough to not ever do that again. A lot of things came to mind, like my mom and that girl from the supermarket, like telling me don't do that. That was definitely like a turning point for me to not be on my phone while I was driving.
Well, hopefully stories like this will inspire us all to not be on the phone while driving, because sometimes these distractions can cause serious consequences.
For example, in Denver, the day before Thanksgiving in 2007, high school senior Patrick Sims was driving and texting a friend when he ran over a cyclist.
The impact killed Jim Price, a 63-year-old grandfather.
Patrick had to serve 10 days in jail and is now on probation. Now he talks to teens about the crash, hoping that his story will prevent similar tragedies.
Listening to stories like this, it's really scary. When I drive, I put my cell phone on silent and I keep it somewhere where I can't reach it. So if someone's trying to call me or someone's texting me, it doesn't distract me from the road and what I should be concentrating on. Because honestly, there's nothing that they could be calling or texting me about that I can't deal with at my destination, and it's not worth the danger on the road.
For once, my friend had just dropped me off at my house, and I was inside, and then I passed a window, and I saw her still sitting out there in her car, and I was like, like, what's going on? What is she doing? And I went outside, and she was like, oh, no, I'm fine. I just had to, like, make this call, and I didn't want to do it while I was driving. So, like, definitely respect people so much more, like, when you turn it on silent. Or like,
not only, they're protecting themselves, they're protecting everyone else on the road, and it shows respect for everybody.
Right.
For sure.
So great.
I know for a fact that when I drive, I turn my phone off and it's gone, nowhere near me. And the reason I do that is because my grandmother was in a lot of car accidents when she was younger, and out of her own accord. And she now has extreme back problems because of that. After hearing about these accidents and things like that, I realized so much more that I don't want to be the cause of any kind of pain like that.
And the next few commandments are just talking about what we just talked about, the victims and the distractions that can cause victims.
Exactly. Number 7 and 8 apply exactly to Patrick's situation.
Right. The 7th commandment for drivers is support the families of accident victims.
Patrick showed his support for the family of Jim Price by asking for their forgiveness. Also, by sharing his story with others, he not only keeps Jim's memory alive, but educates young people about the consequences of reckless driving.
And the 8th commandment is bring guilty motorists and their victims together at the appropriate time so that they can undergo the liberating experience of forgiveness.
Well, the Price family did forgive Patrick, and they advocated that he speak about the accident rather than sit in jail.
Texting while driving is just one of the latest distractions that face drivers in today's society.
But there are many other distractions and behaviors which can cause serious accidents and loss of life.
Next, Gina tells us whether she thinks her friends are safe drivers.
She also tells us about one friend in particular who was caught speeding with his little brother in the car.
Some of my friends aren't really safe drivers. I'm saying that because some of them are like texting while they're driving. A lot of them like talk while they're on the phone or text, but I think the worst thing is like texting because they're not like looking at the road. Speeding is another problem that like young drivers have too. I have friends that race with other like people. They just like the rush, but they don't understand also that it's very dangerous for like the person that's in the car with you. You're like risking both of your lives and the people that are driving around you. Recently, someone I know, he was speeding. A cop saw him and he thought he could get away. So he kept going and he like reached like almost 100 and his little brother was in the car. He was sure he got away from the cop. Another cop came out of nowhere and they pulled him over. And there was like 3 cops like around him, and obviously like, cops are gonna think that you're trying to run away because you're doing something bad or you have something bad in your car. Now he has to pay lots of tickets. They said that he was putting his little brother's life in risk and that he was putting other people's lives in risk. So that was something really serious, and hopefully he'll learn from that and he won't do it again.
Well, as Gina just proved to us, it really is important to remember that driving is a sacred responsibility. You're safeguarding human life.
And reckless behavior like speeding, drinking and driving, and road rage is not respecting your life, the lives of your passengers, and of other drivers and passengers on the road.
So guys, what do you think? What's helped you be a good driver?
Well, ever since I started driving, my mom has told me, the car is a weapon. You might not look at it like that, but it can do a lot of damage. It can do as much damage as any other weapon you can think of. And keeping that in the back of your mind while you're on the road, it just helps me like be a little safer, not do some risky things. I try not to speed through the yellow light because I have somewhere to go. It doesn't hurt to wait 2 minutes.
I know for me, my mom is always telling me before I leave, oh, make sure you're careful when you're driving. It just gives me that reassurance that, okay, go out and be safe while you're driving.
I'm a good girl, I follow the rules, but I also call my parents before I leave the house and then when I arrive at my destination just so they know that I'm safe. And one of the things that's a positive effect of high gas prices is that there's fewer drivers on the road, which means the accident rates have gone down significantly. But that also means that more people are carpooling, so drivers just have to be really careful the more passengers that they add. It's a really big distraction.
Yeah, that's true. I like to consider myself a nice person, and if someone needs a ride home, I wouldn't mind if they're in my direction. But at the same time, if like 3 people need a ride home, I know the restrictions on my license are that 1 person in the car unless they're in my household. But the thing is, I know that listening to my mom and dad for all these years, talking about driving, watching my mom drive, watching how she works the car, that's what's instilled being a good driver in me.
And especially nowadays, I mean, you have to be so careful. I mean, you were saying something about so many people being in the car, you know, and that's in fact the next commandment. You know, driver's commandment number 9 is on the road, you should not only protect yourself, but the more vulnerable party as well.
And the 10th commandment for drivers is be responsible toward others.
The Vatican gave us a whole document on pastoral care of road users, but what are some other ways our faith can direct us when it comes to being good and safe drivers?
That's what we asked the teens on the street.
Let's check it out.
If they're believing that God will keep them safe, they'll feel protected, I guess. Maybe a little more focused on the road.
No, because if you're a driver, that's on you. You went to school for it. Faith is not going to help anything.
I think it might even be a distraction, actually. You might have like a cross hanging on your window. You might lose focus and like start looking at that.
If you're a really like hardcore Catholic, then you might believe that staying true to God would mean not breaking the laws, and you wouldn't break laws.
I guess so, because you're more like looking out for people's lives and stuff rather than just thinking about yourself.
Yeah, you say a prayer once in a while and just remember what you're saying and what you believe in.
I guess just like praying for the safety of others.
Praying God for safety.
I do think prayer can help, you know, people be better drivers, give you more confidence, and, you know, it'd make a difference, I think. I think it'll help in many ways.
Next, Gina tells us how she feels her faith helps and influences her driving.
And also what she would include in her own list of commandments for drivers.
Thou shalt not be on your phone, or thou shalt not text while you're driving. Thou shalt not drink and drive. Thou shalt not smoke and drive. Thou shalt not speed. Thou shalt not be reckless. Thou shalt not tailgate. Well, thou shalt be patient while they're driving. One of the things I struggle with a lot while I drive is road rage. I get really frustrated sometimes when cars pass me. I know that's something I have to work on. I think that someone's faith can definitely help with being a better driver, because if you think of virtues of a Christian, it's one of them are to be patient and kind, and if you carry that over to driving, then being a patient and kind driver is a better driver. And they make the roads more peaceful. Prayer can definitely help us to be better drivers, because if you just have that urge to speed or be aggressive or even pick up your phone and text, you can pray or even say it an Our Father to keep you away from that. And you can even pray for other drivers around you. Before I pull out to go somewhere, I do the sign of the cross. En nombre del Padre, del Hijo, del Espíritu Santo. Amen. To ask God to bless my trip. No matter how short or long the distance is, I won't get that urge to text or to do any of the other unsafe things on the road. You always have to be alert and just ready for anything. Anything can happen in a blink of an eye.
Well, Gina was so right. Anything can happen in a blink of an eye.
All right, so I got a question for you guys. What are some ways that your faith will help you be a more courteous driver?
I know for me, like Gina said, I always, whenever I get in the car, I bless myself and say, God, please keep me safe as I drive, and keep everybody else safe that's on the road as well.
Obviously, a lot of people pray, but at the same time, the Lord helps those who help themselves. So, just keep that in the back of your mind. What would Jesus do? And try to drive as safely as possible.
Go ahead.
My name means, translated, it means God bless you in this journey. And wherever I go, I always keep that in mind, that God help me, get through where I have to go and come back safely.
It's really cool. So every time you hear your name, you kind of like figure that you're a Be Safe driver. My dad, it's automatic. You know how you're supposed to like check your mirrors and start the car. That's the first thing he does in the car. Seatbelt. Name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Kisses his hands, turns on the car. It's just automatic. I have to try to get in the habit.
My mom gave me a little heart thing up there. There's a little prayer on it. So I always know God is watching over me.
And also, our faith can help us to have compassion on the victims and on those who are in the accident.
And we just have to remember driving's not a right, it's a privilege. And you have to fully appreciate that responsibility.
And I think it's important to have confidence that God will protect you on your trip. And like what Christina said, you have to also have confidence in yourself, because if you're driving correctly, you're driving safely, and that's what Jesus would do.
We always have to remember that God is there with us while we drive, and we have to respect all the rules of the road, for sure. Well, here is a final thought from the Vatican's guidelines for the pastoral care for the road.
Those who know Jesus Christ are careful on the roads.
They don't only think about themselves,
And they are not always worried about getting to their destination in a great hurry.
they see the people who accompany them on the road, each of whom has their own life, their own desire to reach a destination, and their own problems.
They see everyone as brothers and sisters, sons and daughters of God.
This is the attitude that characterizes a Christian driver.
Do you try to adopt your Christian values to your driving experience?
We'd like to know. Contact us through our website.
The address is www.realfaithtv.com.
Or you can call us at 609-406-7402.
And remember, not to just keep Jesus in the driver's seat of our lives,
but in the driver's seat of our cars.
Thanks for watching.
We'll see you next time on
Real Faith TV. God bless. And Vince.
Don't throw it. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Remember, don't text while driving.
I won't.
All right, good show, guys.